we thank him for leaving, whatever he's dealing with, what he came for, the trip that he's with, and to come to see the boys. Shem yivarech oto, Be'ezrat Hashem shlach refuah shlema. How's your son doing? What's Menachem Meir ben? I'm sorry, Menachem refuah shlema for Menachem ben Miriam. Be'ezrat Hashem beramah hivara b'shasa gidav b'riut and simcha nachat. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the shoot, Rabbi Laniado, and all of the rabbis. I know you're in the middle of a fundraiser right now. You're in the middle? You raised any money? Yes? Yes, you got some real dollars? 52 or like? Okay. Aslan did well? They called every Boave that there is. Okay. So, I wanted, really what I'd like my focus to be on this morning is why this fundraiser is so important. And I know in your mind you're saying you have to fundraise, you have to spend the time on this because you love the yeshiva, you love Rabbi Laniado, you love the rabbis, you want the yeshiva to be able to stay open and continue and to be strong. That's a beautiful reason. Another reason is because you have a tremendous amount of hakarat hatov for the impact that the yeshiva had on you. But I'd like to say it's a little more than that. I think keeping Lev Aharon strong is keeping, I can speak at least for the Syrian community, is keeping the Syrian community strong. And if there were no Lev Aharon, Rabbi said, what was the life like around without different organizations? I'll tell you what life was like before there was Lev Aharon. Before there was Lev Aharon, people went to schools, it was nice, you came to Israel for a year. Some people got a little inspired. They opened up a Gemara kind of for the first time in a new way. They came back, and whatever happened, happened. And Baruch Hashem, there's been a lot to build on the back end of once people come back. Kesha, but really also other institutions, other night programs and things like that to maintain it, the Kolelim that are able to maintain it. But the real change happened when Lev Aharon made coming to Eretz Yisrael not just a cute experience, but made coming to Eretz Yisrael a life-changing experience. And what's happened now for a couple of decades is you're watching boys, and again, this is when I was in Magen David, I saw it from the Magen David end, and then in Kesha, I see it from the Kesha end. Both sides of the coin you could see. Boy comes in, and he's whatever. Some of them are motivated, some of them are not motivated, some of them have good background, some don't have a great background. And many times, the boys that get on the plane, and it's not possible that you believe they're going to come to Israel and anything's going to come of them. Because rabbis tried in 9th grade, they tried in 10th, they tried in 11th, and they tried in 12th, and the kid just got worse. And now all of a sudden Lev is going to do something, Israel's going to do something, what's it going to do? And all of a sudden the boy comes back and he's a different person. This doesn't happen to one boy, two boys, three boys, this has happened to hundreds of boys that are now leading the charge. They're building families, many of them have older kids at this point. And they're leading families, and the mentality in the Syrian community is being driven very much by Lev Aharon boys. And Lev Aharon boys are setting the standard of Torah. They're in the night programs, they're in the event, they're the ones that are pushing the next level and the next level. I still have no idea what exactly goes on over here. If I had the time, I would stay in like some dorm room as a ghost where no one could see me, and I just listen and try to figure out what's the magic. I still don't understand. I know there's the most beautiful rabbis in the world. That I know. But that itself doesn't, there's something. I don't know what it is. Is it that drink? I don't know what it is. I really still don't know what it is. But there's something about the Torah of Lev Aharon that's completely different. I want to tell you what the Torah of Lev Aharon does and what they tap into, and maybe a little bit of what I think Rabbi Laniado believes in. I know the Rabbi has to go, so don't, Rabbi, please. If you have a meeting, you'll get the recording. Okay? We read last week's parasha that an Ivri leaves if he's going out free. He could go out after he stole, and because of that he's taken as a slave, and for 6 years he's a slave, And now he could go, he's done, he paid back his debt, he's good, he could start clean. The Pasuk says, but if he says, I want to stay, I want to stay, we drill his ear into the door. So the question is, why do you drill the ear? And Rashi famously says, Ozen sheshamat, the ear that heard at Har Sinai, don't steal. You stole. The ear that heard at Har Sinai, that klibnei savadim, they're my servants, not other. This the ear, what happened? What'd you do wrong? So the question is, the main mistake this guy did wrong is stealing. That's the main mistake he did wrong, is stealing. So if that's the main mistake, so why don't we drill his hands? Why are we drilling his ear? And the main mistake happened 6 years ago, when he first stole. Why are we waiting until now to drill him? That's the question. And why specifically the door? So the answer is like this. You know, the Pasuk says in Devarim, after it talks about, in Sefer Devarim, after it talks about that Hashem gave us the Aseret Devarot, gave us the Luchot, the Pasuk says, I don't know the Pasuk in front of me, but basically to this idea that these words Hashem told the Jewish people, from the Anan, from the Mitoch Ha'esh, Anan V'Arafel, told the Jewish people at Har Sinai, from within the fire and the clouds, Kol Gadol V'Lo Yasaf. A strong voice, V'Lo Yasaf. What does it mean, V'Lo Yasaf? Says Rashi, V'Lo Pasak. There's a voice that comes out to Har Sinai and it doesn't end. Says Rashi, a human's voice, even if the best chazan, you hear him, his voice could go high for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds, and then he comes back down. But this voice could go and never end. Some say that this is the voice that the Mishnah is talking about, B'Kehavot, that says that Kol Yom V'Yom Bad Kol Yosef Mehar Chorev, every day a voice comes out from Har Sinai, and it says that Hashem gives Jewish people the Torah, and this is the life to live, and you follow Borei Olam. That's all that is embedded in this voice. In fact, the Taz says, why do we say in the morning, when we say B'Kot HaShachar, we don't say Hashem Natan Torah. We say Hashem is Noten Torah, giving the Torah. Why is it giving the Torah? Because He's constantly giving it. There's this voice that's coming out and it's ringing true every single day. The Rashba says that when you say the word Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, you're supposed to not just know Shema Yisrael, listen with the ears. Shema Yisrael means you listen until it moves you. Because that's how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live with this voice ringing out from Har Sinai that Hashem is giving us the Torah every single day. And with the problem with this Eved Ivri is, here's the mistake the Eved Ivri made. I got it, you fell on hard times, you got caught up, you stole. It was wrong, but I understand how it could happen. But now you finished the 6 years. Why are you staying? Hashem says, I want you to be my servant. Why are you still staying, serving another master? The belief, the foundation of Lev Aharon, is the fact that every single boy is hearing that voice. I don't care if the boy is in America in 12th grade and he's doing the dumbest things and he's on his phone all day, and I don't care if he's on drugs, I don't care if he's drinking, I don't care if he's gambling, I don't care if he has 3 fancy teams, I don't care if he never opened up a Gemara, he's still hearing the voice. And the belief of Lev Aharon is that Bat Kol is resonating inside of every soul. Lev Aharon over the 20, how many years open? 25? 20. Over the 20 years that Lev Aharon has been powerful and strong, it's unbelievable how much belief they have in boys that everybody else gave up on. Everybody else gave up on. Now, no one else saw. You might say there's other Yeshivat issue that people knew had hope. In Lev Aharon, there's so many boys that people said, not really, he's going to Israel just because of his friends. And he really did go to Israel just because of his friends. But Lev Aharon knows that there's really a voice that the boy really heard. And when he got on the plane, even if it was because his friends were going, he really got on the plane because of the voice. He really got on the plane because of the bat call, because of the sound that Hashem is calling every single one of us. In fact, let me give you a little example of this concept. This is not from Lev Aharon, but Khan associates in a certain way. I don't know how many years ago it was. It might have been 12, 14 years ago. I was in Brooklyn only for a few years, and one night I decided I'm going to take my wife out for dinner. I don't remember where we went, But we went somewhere, I remember it was on Avenue K. And you know how it is to park in Brooklyn? You remember Brooklyn? Yes? Okay, you know how it is to park in Brooklyn. You pull up, it's always tight. And it was a tight spot. And my wife said, no, I think you could get the car in. So I got my car in, like, you tap the car behind, tap in front. Nowadays you don't do it as much because they have the beeper and it kills you, the car, it gets crazy. But back then, what? Yes, whatever it's called, but those things. My car right now, if I pull back and there's a car coming, it feels like I got into an accident. But anyhow, back then it was easy to do. You nudge the car in front, nudge out, you put your car, very good. Parked my car, we went out for dinner. We come back, and I see someone, like, leaning on my car like this, on his phone. Back then it wasn't even a BlackBerry, it was like an iPhone, I think it was like a flip phone. Leaning on his car. And I hear him talking, he's like animated, and he seems worked up. I don't know who this guy is, worked up. And I hear him say, oh, here he comes. And I'm like, here, who comes? The only one who's coming is me. So I get closer to the car, and he starts ripping. Jewish kid, I don't know where he came from. He says, this your car? I said, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, look what you did. I said, what'd I do? He says, do you see there's a car? You see what you did? I said, no, what are you talking about? He says, you see my car over here? It's a white on black CL550. Mint condition. I waited my whole life for this car. And you scratched the car. I said, I scratched the car? No, what are you talking about? He says, look. I'm looking to find a scratch. Boys, there was no scratch. Not like a rabbi can't tell scratch. There was really no scratch. He was livid. He says, you don't understand, this car is my life. This car is my life. Using every word in the English language and not in the English language. This car is my life. This car is my life. I can't believe what you did. I can't believe you did. It'll never be mint condition again. I don't know if I was scared, confused. I don't know what was happening. Finally, some Syrian guy walks by. And I go over to the person. I said, can you talk to this man? So he goes over to this boy. The boy's maybe 25, 27 years old. He goes over to him. He tells the boy. He says, do you know who you're talking to? The boy says, no. He says, do you know who you're talking to? The boy says, no. He says, do you realize this story is going to be online in 2 days? So the guy then calms down and he sits in his car and he just doesn't know what to do with himself. Now I almost felt bad for him. He's a Jewish kid, but I'd never seen him before. And I go over to him and I said, listen, I just want to tell you two things. I feel for you, I feel bad. I really do. I said, but I want to tell you two things. First of all, this is Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, the way we say good morning is by tapping your car. So just understand this is life. I said, but second of all, I want you to know, if your car is your life, you don't really have a life. And he says, Rabbi, trust me, I know. That was it. And he drove away. Of course, I said the story online 2 days later. And I said it wherever I could. In fact, I think I said it in the dome on Sharet Zion on Rosh Hashanah. Okay? 2 days later, I get a phone call. I say, I get a phone call. And I say, hi, who's this? Back then I answered numbers I didn't recognize. I said, who's this? He says, does CL550 ring a bell? I said, yeah. He says, does CL550 ring a bell? Now I'm starting to shake. I'm like, he must have heard that I told the story about him. He's going to slash my tires. I might find myself like in cement in the bottom of the ocean. Like, I was so nervous. I said, yeah. He says, I'm the guy from the CL555. He says, what you said to me that day inspired me. After Sukkot, I'm going to Israel. He went to Israel to learn. He called me again after when he came back. I forgot maybe it was a year later. He called me up. He said, Rabbi, I'm making Siyum Masechet Kiddushin. A few weeks after, maybe a year later, he called me to make a beracha at his wedding. I was unable to make a beracha at his wedding. but he married like a Ben Torah. I went to his Yeshivat Lev Aharon. I spoke at his Yeshivat Lev Aharon. I think it was in Queens. I spoke at the Yeshivat Lev Aharon, and I told the story. I said, it's unbelievable. There are people that I know for years, and I can't move them an inch. This guy, I moved his car an inch and changed his whole life. The person's name, I don't know if you know his name is Mordechai Bachar. He lives across the street. He owns 7, what? Morty Bahar. Did he learn here ever?
No, he used to teach here.
He used to teach here. He now runs 7 different kollel programs in Israel. 7 kollel programs. He's finished many masechtot, and it all happened from a tap of a car. I'm not exaggerating. I was just on the phone with him. I wasn't even going to say the story, but I was just on the phone with him. He was telling me the programs that he has. There are people learning all day. There's Kabbalah program, there's Friday program, Halakha. It's unbelievable what he's doing.
Now
you know?
I understand why you're so afraid.
What? Now I'm afraid. Oh, now you know why I was afraid. He was a scary guy back in the day. He was. No, he really. I remember he kept saying. Remember when he was yelling at me? He kept saying, "Torah is your life, but my life is my car. Your life is Torah, but my life is my car." And like he didn't go to Magen David or he didn't go to any of the schools we knew. It was like I don't know where his background was from. And now Torah is his life. And if you ask him how thankful he is that Torah is his life, it's an unbelievable thing. It wasn't the tap of a car. It was the fact that deep down inside of his neshama, he was hearing the batko. He was hearing the voice of Hashem talk to him and say, I'm here. And that's what Lev Aharon is built on. Every boy in this room has an incredible neshama. Most of you maybe I knew before and knew about that neshama. But it's hard in America. One of the biggest comments you get from parents, I've spoken to hundreds of parents over the years about sending their son to Israel. And one of the biggest comments you get from parents is, oh, my son really cares about learning. Why does he learn here in America? I don't want to say this. Maybe please make sure this video doesn't go to the parents. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Because they don't understand. You need the environment. You need to go away. You need to be in Lev Aharon. You need to be surrounded by the rabbis. You need to be immersed in it. You need to be sort of pulled away from all of the nonsense that literally you're drowning in America. And Lev Aharon brings you here and makes it happen. But there's another beauty to Lev Aharon. And after this little thought, I'll conclude. You know, we all know about when Sarai Imenu passed away. It's parasha named after it, Chaye Sarah. And it's a whole story, 20 Pesukim, buying Marat HaMachpelah and Ephron, the whole thing. When did Rivka Imenu pass away? Where in the Torah does it talk about Rivka Imenu passing away? It talks about when Rachel passed away. At least it's not a lot of space, but a few Pesukim. Where does it talk about Rivka? Here's what it is. The Pasuk says, randomly, while Yaakov and his son, Vatamo Rivka, Devorah Meneket Rivka. Devorah, the nurse of Rivka, passed away and says she was buried Tachat Ha'alon or whatever. And Rashi says it's referring to the fact also that Rivka passed away. So then Rashi asks the obvious question. You're talking about this Devorah who we never heard of before or after. We have one pasuk about Devorah, that she died. As far as in the Pesukim, we never heard of her before. Why don't you, and you're alluding to the fact that Rivka also passed away. Why don't you just tell us that Rivka Imenu passed away? And Rashi's answer is one that's not so famous, and people don't spend enough time internalizing. Rashi says because when Rivka passed away, she was nervous of people to know. Because people are going to talk and sort of curse her that she was the womb Keresa that carried Esav. She's the womb, she's the mother of Esav, and people are going to talk bad about her. So therefore the Torah hides her passing. What does that mean? That means is this. Sarah also had difficult things. But Sarai Imenu's life was outwardly challenging. Everyone saw her nisayon. She was taken into 2 kings' palaces. There was famines. Everyone saw the nisayon that she was dealing with. And when you overcome external challenges, someone breaks their leg and they still come back to play. When you overcome external challenges, you die a hero. So Sarai Imenu died a hero because she overcame these unbelievable challenges that everyone could see would be difficult to deal with, and she still became Sarai Imenu. So we make a big deal out of her passing because she had a hero's passing. But Rivka Imenu had an inside challenge, a child that she's embarrassed of, a child you're embarrassed of, you can't talk about, you can't share with the world. No one says, you're a hero, your child wasn't great. And so it's a lonely challenge. And a lonely challenge is much harder to deal with. A lonely challenge, you can't talk to all your friends. You don't have people cheering you on. You're embarrassed for them to even know what you're struggling with. And this is the beauty of Lev Aharon. The beauty of Lev Aharon is somehow they know how to work with people's lonely challenges. There's a lot of insecurities of being a teenage boy. And Lev Aharon knows those insecurities and finds a way to tap into boys no matter what bothers them deep inside, no matter what they're insecure about, no matter what they're embarrassed about, no matter what family background they had or some weakness that they had in yeshiva. And most of these boys spend 11th grade and 12th grade doing everything they can to cover up their insecurity, to make sure that nobody sees and nobody knows. They can look as cool and as with it and as smart as possible. And maybe even they drink it or drug it away to do whatever they can to protect themselves from what they're struggling with inside. Somehow in Lev Aharon, they find a way to help a boy deal with that struggle and help a boy come out of that struggle and lift him up from the struggle. Lev Aharon has changed the Syrian community. Most people in the Syrian community will not admit it. Some people will, most people don't. They talk about big celebrated institutions and big celebrated yeshivot, and this yeshiva has 1,000 kids and 1,500 kids, and how many kids? Having a zillion kids is not a goal. The goal is to change kids, to change lives. And with Lev Aharon's ability to be able to tap into every person's personal struggle and give them confidence and belief and strength through that struggle makes them incomparable. And then their willingness to understand and their courage to strengthen and believe in people, that they know that even if they look like their neshama is full of junk, they still believe that every neshama is listening to that bat kol. It's why people come here and they change. Let me end with one last little story. This is based on basically a true story that happened a number of years ago, maybe it's 50, 60 years ago. There was this in a place in India, there was this very big palace, old ancient palace. And in this ancient palace, they had a very tall, large, very heavy clay chair. Maybe 20 feet, 30 feet high. And it was impossibly heavy. It was never moved for years. Now they decided it's time to renovate the palace. The problem is, in order to renovate, you got to remove the chair, but it's so unbelievably heavy. So they designated a certain night that they were going to just move the chair to like a building next door, and for the year or two of renovation, and then they'll bring the chair back. They brought, I don't know how many men. They had a pulley system and some trolley system, something like that. They would be able to lift up this chair, put it on the trolley and pull it. It's made out of clay, and pull it in the middle of the night to the next door house. As they're pulling in the middle of the night, it starts pouring rain. And in the pouring rain, one of the people slip, or a few of the people slip, and the chair hits the ground. Chair hits the ground, and it cracks. A little crack underneath the chair. So it's dark night, it's pouring rain. One of the men goes under the chair, I don't know if it was a fire or a flashlight, and he looks up at the crack, and it's weird because it shines back at him. He's like, why is it shining back at me? Clay doesn't shine. So he pulled away a little of the clay, and then he realized that the chair was actually pure gold. What had happened was 200 years before, there was a major war in India. And one side was losing. And they knew they were going to lose the palace, and they had this pure golden throne. And they didn't want the enemy to take the throne, but they couldn't put the throne on their back and run away. It was too heavy. So what they did was they came up with an idea. We'll take this throne, we'll completely cover it in clay, so that when the enemy comes, they're just going to ignore the throne, treat it like it's just a clay chair. And eventually, one day when we get the enemy out, we take over again and we'll get our throne back. They never got the enemy out. The enemy remained staying there for centuries. And so this chair remained the clay chair. But really, as they put away the clay, it was a pure golden throne. Many boys at 17 years old think they're a clay chair. They think that their identity is the sports they play, the teams they follow, how many friends they have, how cool they look, how much time they can waste. And then they come to Yeshivat Lev Aharon. And Yeshivat Lev Aharon slowly starts to peel away the clay and starts to expose the gold. And what happens in this yeshiva, and again I still don't know how, is that by the time these boys come back to their families, it's a year later, it's 2 years later, some of them go into kollel and last many years, but every single boy comes back different because so much of their insecurities are gone. The bat call is ringing powerfully in the ear. And since in Lev Aharon they know how to chip away the clay, boys come back to their families pure gold. Thank you.